Stories featured in Greeking Out are original adaptations of classic Greek myths. This week's story features jumping into a boiling hot cauldron, betrayal, dragons pulling a chariot, getting exiled, Hera's rage, oath-breaking, and lots of death. Parents, this is that story about Medea. You know, the most famous one. So please listen with caution. If you're sensitive, maybe skip this one.
Today, we're revisiting some characters we've talked a lot about on our podcast. Jason of Iolcus and Medea of Colchis.
Jason and the Argonauts was the very first episode of Greeking Out, premiering in 2019.
Exactly, and last season we did a mini-series on Jason where we broke down his adventures with the Argonauts in more detail.
If we just did a mini-series on Jason, why are we talking about him again?
Great question, Oracle. Jason's story is long and complicated. In fact, if you haven't listened to that miniseries, you might want to pause this episode and go back and listen to those first. If you don't want to do all that, here's the TLDR version.
TLDR stands for Too Long Didn't Read, and in this context means we are giving you a fast summary.
Right, and we'll go for the shortest possible recap here, okay? Jason's uncle, King Peleus, took the throne of Iolcus in Greece away from Jason's father, and in order to get the throne back, Peleus told Jason he needed to get the Golden Fleece from Colchis, a similarly named place that was on the other side of the known world, probably somewhere in the modern country of Georgia. Jason gathered a truly epic crew and was helped by Hera, who hates Peleus, to make it to Colchis. Once there, Hera and Aphrodite made Medea, the daughter of the king of Colchis, fall in love with Jason so she would save his life. And save it, like, a lot of times. Jason and Medea managed to get away with the Golden Fleece with only a brief detour to see Circe to get absolved for some kin murdering that they did, and we left Jason and Medea heading back to Iolcus in Greece with the Golden Fleece in hand and future looking bright. So, today's story focuses on what happened after Jason and Medea's epic quest, kind of an epilogue.
An epilogue is defined as a section at the end of a book or play that serves as an add-on after the conclusion.
Right, and while we talk a lot about Jason in general, this story is really about someone who doesn't exactly have the best reputation in the world of Greek mythology. Medea.
Medea is a descendant of Helios and now Jason's wife.
Very true. It's because of Medea's cleverness and sorcery that Jason and the Argonauts were able to survive many tricky situations and make it back with the Golden Fleece. Not many stories in Greek mythology end with success like that. The quest was complete, but unfortunately, it wasn't the end of the story either. You see, Jason's uncle Peleus never imagined the Argonauts would actually return. This was definitely a please die on this heroic quest kind of a thing that Peleus had made up. He was completely shocked when Jason showed back up with the Golden Fleece in hand.
Jason, what are you doing here?
But of course, when Jason demanded that he relinquish the throne, Peleus denied that he had ever said anything about a Golden Fleece in the first place. He was the king, and he wasn't about to give up a throne to some rando just because he had a cool piece of wool.
Golden Fleece? What Golden Fleece? No, I've never heard of it.
Jason slunk away in defeat and sighed to Medea that the voyage had been for nothing.
I can't believe we went through all that and it didn't even work. It's not fair,
he whined.
I'm never gonna be king.
Jason was not much of a problem solver.
No, he was not. Medea shook her head. She had betrayed her family and gone into exile for this guy? But what choice did she have now? She didn't come all this way just to be exiled from another city, so she decided to take matters into her own hands. She disguised herself as an old wise woman and went to talk to Peleus' 3 daughters. She convinced them that she had a special cauldron that would turn anything inside it into a younger version of itself. To show how it worked, Medea put an old sheep inside the cauldron and a lamb emerged. Peleus' daughters were quite impressed.
You know, it doesn't only work on animals,
The fake Medea said.
it works on people too. Can you think of anyone that would like to be young again,
The daughters immediately thought about their father, and convinced Peleus to jump into the scalding hot cauldron.
Please do not jump into a cauldron filled with boiling water. It cannot end well.
Very true. And to the surprise of nobody, Peleus did not come out of the cauldron as a young man. In fact, he didn't come out of the cauldron at all.
He died.
Now, when the daughters realized that they had been tricked by Medea in disguise, Medea and Jason were exiled from Iolcus anyway. And when we say exiled, we don't just mean that they were kicked out. Okay, well, actually, we do mean that they were kicked out, but it's a little more complicated than that.
Exile was a form of punishment in ancient Greece that banned a person from living in a specific city or town. It was also seen as a loss of identity, as it completely uprooted a person's life and forced them to lose contact with their friends and family.
Yeah, that's pretty intense.
The ancient Greeks often said that being exiled was a fate worse than death.
Ouch. And imagine how it must have felt for Jason, who had traveled for years and battled monsters just to find himself kicked out of his home forever. This is what his whole life had been about, coming back to rule in Greece. Who was he if he wasn't a Greek prince? Times were tough, and both Jason and Medea were a little bit grumpy.
The worst thing I ever did was help that Argonaut boy steal my father's fleece,
Medea muttered to herself as they walked across Greece looking for their new home.
Once you are exiled from one city, many others will refuse to take you in. They think you are dangerous to society.
Medea had given up everything to help Jason. Her family, her home, her reputation. She thought she had done it all out of love, but it turns out even that had been out of her control.
At Hera's request, Aphrodite had bribed her son Eros to shoot Medea with a love arrow and make her fall in love with Jason.
And I'm no expert on how long these love arrows tend to last, but it seemed pretty clear that the magic was starting to fade. Medea could see Jason for who he really was, and she wasn't that impressed. Luckily, Jason and Medea were able to find a city that would take them in, the Greek city of Corinth. Once they settled in Corinth, things started to turn around. Jason and Medea were finally able to stop traveling. They made the best of their new home and made a life for themselves. They even had 2 children together. Despite how hard the journey had been, Medea was finally living something like the life Jason had promised her. They were married, they had a comfortable home, they were raising a family.
It was a rocky start,
She said to herself,
but it was worth it to get to this point.
which made it all the more devastating when she realized the life she had been building was not the life Jason wanted to live. Jason had lived most of his life as royalty, and now he was never going to be king, and it weighed really heavily on his mind. He wanted to be a king. He deserved to be a king. He had built boats and fought harpies and grown an army of soldiers from little dragon teeth. He'd done everything he was supposed to do, and it had not turned out in his favor. Sure, he wasn't a great leader on the Argo, and yes, he had failed successfully to take Iolcus back from his uncle, but he still felt like he was destined for greatness. He just could not accept that his only destiny was to live as a commoner in Corinth, some other king's city, with Medea and 2 kids. He yearned for something greater. And because marriage is the ultimate power move in ancient Greece, Jason decided to work the old Argonaut charm he had used on Medea to woo the only daughter of the king of Corinth, a woman named Glauce. Whether or not Jason really loved Glauce, we can't really say, but marrying Glauce would definitely make him king, and as we've already discussed, Jason was meant to be king. Or so he felt. There was just one teeny tiny problem with Jason's master plan.
He was already married.
Exactly. Married to an extremely capable sorceress who had already participated in the murder of at least 2 people to save his butt. Not only that, but in addition to being very rude and disrespectful to his current wife, this was a big no-no for his godly patron, Hera. You remember Hera, queen of the gods, goddess of marriage, and not really the forgiving sort? So Jason was now disrespecting Hera's domain right to her face after all she'd done for him.
Rule number 1 of Greek mythology. Don't disrespect the gods.
Ding, 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 exactly. So needless to say, when Jason decided to abandon Medea and their sons to marry Glauci, Hera was very upset. But what happened next was really amazing. They took a commercial break. Yeah. Okay, well, it's actually not that amazing, but it is something we have to do. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more Greeking Out. Okay, back to the Greeking Out. Where were we? No one was as furious as Medea. She was so angry that the king of Corinth thought she might do something drastic, and so he preemptively exiled her from Corinth, giving her only 1 day to leave town. Of course, the next time Medea saw Jason, she had some things to say to him.
How dare you humiliate me like this, after all I've done for you? I helped kill my own brother for you. I betrayed my family. You promised me we were in this together.
Oh, don't pretend like you didn't get anything out of our bargain,
Jason said.
You got to move to Greece, which is way better than Colchis. Plus, I made you famous just like I said I would. Everyone knows of all the magical things you've done, so you're welcome.
But now everyone knows me as a murderer as well. I can't go home or anywhere else because I've made too many enemies trying to help you. You have ruined everything I ever had,
Medea said.
You're the one who ruined everything,
Jason responded.
You could have stayed in Greece and your kids would have grown up around Glauci's kids and they would have had royal siblings. But now, because you couldn't be cool about this, you're exiled, so congratulations.
Consumed by fury and devastating heartbreak, unable to see any future for herself in this foreign land, Medea's pain turned her into someone unrecognizable. She became so obsessed with revenge that she started to forget who she was. Her jealousy and anger at Jason's betrayal of his most sacred promise led her to become someone capable of doing truly terrible things.
Revenge and anger can be dangerous things. Something similar happened to Heracles when he got older.
One thing Medea was certain of in her mind, she could not allow Jason to move forward and cast her aside without a second thought. He'd broken his oaths to the gods, and he'd broken his oath to her.
Oaths were considered a binding agreement in Greek mythology. Oath-breaking was a major offense and could result in both legal consequences and divine punishments.
Right. Breaking an oath was a way of disrespecting the gods, which we know is a huge deal. Medea was furious and decided that she would have her vengeance and repay the hurt Jason had dealt to her tenfold, even if it meant tearing out her own heart. And yes, Medea was devastated. She was really sad, but she was still clever and powerful. So she took a dress and a crown that had been given to her by the gods and stayed up all night, altering that dress to give to Glauci as a wedding dress. But remember, Medea was a sorceress. She could do things that other people could not.
Medea was originally a high priestess of the goddess Hecate, associated with witchcraft.
The dress Medea was working on was no ordinary dress, in more ways than one. Medea stood back and admired her handiwork when she was finished. No human on earth could resist such a gleaming gift. Medea had really outdone herself. Glauci was hesitant when she received Medea's gift of a wedding dress. I mean, why would Jason's ex-wife give her a dress? She must have ulterior motives. But when Glauci laid eyes on this magnificent garment, she put aside her common sense. It was the most beautiful dress she'd ever seen. Jason was a little more skeptical.
There's something fishy going on here.
But even he figured there was nothing really to worry about. I mean, after all, how much harm could one pretty dress cause? As it turns out, a lot. Glauci was so enamored with the dress that she wanted to try it on immediately. Before Jason could stop her, she slipped the gown over her head and squealed with glee.
I'm the most beautiful bride in the world,
she exclaimed.
Father, come see.
As her father walked into the room and began to admire the beautiful dress on his daughter, Glauci began to feel a little hot. A tingling sensation spread over her skin. The dress had caught on fire. Jason watched in horror as his future bride and future life went up in flames. The king rushed to help his daughter. He tried to smother the fire, but Medea's spell attached itself to him as well, and before long, the cursed dress killed Glauci and her father. Basically, the whole royal family of Corinth.
This sounds like a truly terrible wedding dress.
Jason fell to his knees in both anguish and frustration. He knew that this was Medea's doing. How could she do this to him?
The people in these stories are not meant to be role models. They are meant to prompt debate in the listener.
Exactly. Yeah, this is important. This story was actually told to students to help them think about what was right and what was wrong. Medea believed that she was in the right because Jason had broken his oath to her and to the gods. Everything she'd done, including murdering her own brother, was because Jason needed her to. But had Glauci really done anything? And did Medea really have to destroy Jason's future and his family? And Jason thought he was in the right because he had been promised a throne and felt he deserved a throne. Therefore, anything he did in service of that goal would be okay. And maybe he even believed that marrying Glauci was going to be what was best for his children, who would be related to the royal family and have safety and have stability.
Neither argument is flawless.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Oracle, but the gods are not human, and maybe they don't care about all the human things we care about. Killing mortals was not high on the list of the things they were actually worried about, but oath-breaking? Now that was a recipe for divine anger.
While Medea is not a god, she does have divine ancestry. Helios, the sun god, is said to be her grandfather.
Right. Helios sent Medea a chariot of dragons so she could flee from Corinth, which was a good thing because Jason was very angry and would have killed her if given the chance. From atop of her gleaming, flying chariot, Medea addressed her former husband.
These are the dragons of my grandfather Helios, and they have come to remind you which one of us is the true hero. I have taken everything from you, and now we'll see how far you get without me. Have a nice life, Jason!
In Euripides' play, Medea, this is the point where she prophesies Jason's unheroic death when he...
Hey, no, wait, don't say it, Oracle, no spoilers, come on!
Again, I don't think it is possible to spoil a play from 431 BCE, but I will let you continue with the story.
Thank you. Well, after Medea's dramatic exit, she headed off to Athens, where it is said that she married King Aegeus and had other adventures.
King Aegeus is the father of the famous hero Theseus, who defeated the Minotaur.
Right, and let's just say that Medea and Theseus didn't exactly get along, but that, as we say, is a story for another day. Sadly, after Glauci's murder, this was kind of the end of the line for our buddy Jason. Without the help of Medea or Hera, Jason was forced to go through life on his own, and it was a bit of a struggle. There are different accounts as to what happened next, but most say that Jason ended up trying to return to Iolcus, but he was never the same. No one accepted him, and he was left alone without his family. It is said that he died by himself after falling asleep underneath the old rotting skeleton of the Argo. Rumor has it that he was crushed by a falling beam from the ship. You don't have to be a poet to understand that metaphor.
Jason's dreams to be a successful hero and king literally killed him. This is what Medea predicted in the end of Euripides' play.
Exactly. When you're unmetaphorically crushed by your dreams, you have to know you messed up somewhere.
Thanks for listening. Next week, we're going to take a break from drama and slow it down a bit.
Breaking out, gods and heroes, amazing feats. Listen and you'll see it's breaking out.
This episode of National Geographic Kids Greeking Out is written by Jillian Hughes and Kenny Curtis, and hosted by Kenny Curtis, with Tori Kerr as the Oracle of Wifi. Audio production and sound design by Scotty Beam, and our theme song was composed by Parry Gripp. Emily Gamin and Giovanna Alaimo are our producers, and Emily Everhart is our senior producer.